Hi everyone, welcome to the Cascadia Poetry Festival. I'm excited to be announcing our lineup of readers for tonight. We've got another kind of great schedule of events set up for tomorrow, including some panels in the morning and then readings throughout the afternoon and a mono poem, almost a ceremony of poetry in the evening and then a late night. So tomorrow's going to be a long day. But we've got, to kick it off tonight, we've got Robert Lashley, Sharon Thesen, Roberto Harrison, and Brenda Hillman. So it's going to be a great evening tonight. And I will give some official bio for each, and then I'll also give a little kind of personal introduction from their work. So first up is Robert Lashley. Robert was a 2016 Jack Straw Fellow, Artist Trust Fellow, and a nominee for a Stranger Genius Award. His books include Green River Valley from Blue Cactus Press, Up South from Small Doggies Press, and The Homeboy Sings, also from Small Doggies Press. His poetry has appeared in the Seattle Review of Books, Nailed, Poetry Northwest, McSweeney's, and the Cascadia Review, and recently the Cascadia Field Guide, which has been on the bestseller list for 40 weeks. In 2019, Entropy Magazine named The Homeboy Songs one of the 25 essential books to come out of Seattle. In September of 2024, his novel, I Never Dreamed in Summer, was selected as a finalist for a Washington State Book Award. And Robert was also one of the co-editors for the Winter in America anthology, and we've got copies back there where poets are responding to the 2024 election, as well as the broader kind of encroachment of fascism, here and in our, in communities across the country and around the world. So if you haven't checked that out, there are copies on the table behind Veronica there. So, and then about Robert's work. Robert Lashley brims with all the fiery vision of an OG prophet thrown in amongst the bones and ghosts strewn out from the Anglican storefronts and Amazon traps of generations of gentrifiers. He sings these poems like Orpheus in a moving river of altars, agonizing the endless city phantasms of gods and demons and menageries of ruin and self-preserved youth, just to feel an aliveness amongst abandonment and displacement and the inevitable decay, all the metaphors choked into self-serving drama, and yet he sings beyond life and death and rebirth until those dry bones begin to move, a two-step kingdom from memory, and we can see in all the wrestling with grief a struggle for reliable forms in the spaces between trauma and trauma. Please welcome Robert Lashley.
Today is the day, since I have a book coming out in March, I'm going to lead with new work that's tied to my community. This poem is called Song of the Safe Streets Marchers, and it has a nod to Leadbelly. People, there's a land that turns blood into water, a lake where the brook jumps the frog in the day, a ground where brooms jump over street sweepers. There's a hood going around taking names. And the walkers turn bullhorns to electric church calls. They bend revolving doors coming up from the ground. We redeem broken bends in a synesthesia of ash as walkers break rock after rock. They alchemize in feet, street thunder in bricks, while locust and smoke rise from the trapped temples as walkers break rock after rock. And moment and sound becomes a liturgy in sweat. There's a hood going around taking names. And lice in the dust soar from who rides to the sky. Homie souls split the veil in the ground and in the air. From gutters revolving crematoriums. Unseen dust swirls between the saved and the damned, whose depths in their shoe pats turn to alms. There's a hood going around taking names. The bullhorn is good evidence of things unseen. The turner of traps. The crumbler of gang sanctuaries. The trombones that call the roughnecks in evergreen safe houses that crumble by metal note after note. The sound following witnesses through old sucker hills. There's a hood going around taking names. And the shut-ins are called to gather at the wading pool. The bishops in bling. The seers with safety cards. The comforters in keds and Fashion Nova fits to walk through the streets of the city. To bring the banks of the river to the block and upturn carbine street plagues. To make the eternity of blood marks a lie. To make in their walking a new tree of life. Plash blue shadows tinting our windows. The sky drum major shouts to the gallows. There's a hood going around taking names. Thank you. This next poem is my ode to and my community's ode to the sister whale who was going through so much. It was after church, and we heard the news about her baby again, and we heard them. And this poem is called "Homies and Their Aunties Going Down to the River to Honor Tahlequah by the South Sound." Up above my head, the music in the air is the siren for evergreen smokers. The unheard click in radio frequencies and announcements too much to bear. Pass her not, O gentle Savior. Soul claps overdub Sunday bell medians between mermation and migration. Yet we still move close to the water. Gathering in tandem under the flycatchers, under patterns and precipice, turbulent and non, and crow scales overdubbed by our hand claps. Hear our humble cry. Their feet remake their tedious journey. Discounts raise, then pumps raise, then Timberlands, possessed by the particularities of the spirit, pass over painted church columns, pass over music accoutrements and stained window slants, blunting those bedeviled by Exodus. Rumbles of patterns call county flocks to the pebble shore. Cross flights drowned out bishop calls. The water is now Sunday witness, while on others thou art calling. Black wings in rural pews weave hidden estuaries. Jays kneel among jays, tick off in rocks in hidden northwest backwoods. Ice in isolation dictates all beats as the mothers throw dirt in the water. Men raise ankles, then sift in the waves as mothers throw dirt in the water. Fake jewelry and broken moth quilts from circles among soul clappers. As the mothers throw dirt in the water, do not pass her by. Do not pass her by. Thank you. And God bless Telepoint. I come from men in the block who feel obligations to help. This is called Uncle Milton fixes my cousin's jewelry after a jump rope robbery. Though in fresh water, he finds her moonstones. He brings her the patterns to keep her home. He sifts in salt, the clay agate red, that upturns soot, then cycles of matter, then washes and raises these rocks till sunbeams see the hidden heart of turquoise. For her, he repeats in many colors, then takes them to the Home Depot hand mill. Unbroken is their lineage, bead by made bead. Unbroken is their dollar circle, line by wove line, as small worlds become large in their axis. Box jumps are remade in kinetic steps, the afterlife of her dictated patterns. Stone symbols revamp chokers, then loosen to let her color worlds that cross before they betray. Worlds will surpass blood jumps, encoded chants and hand claps, the cost of the corner needle's eye, the ticket price and her bruises he will cover in creation. She is the light of our two distant suns. Though in fresh water, he finds her moonstones. He brings her the patterns to keep her home. Thank you. All right. This next poem is called To the Sister That Sells Hat Bands on Smoky Late Summers at the Commerce bus stop. First a king, then a god with her mother in velvet. In the motherland out of fiber, gold, neon, and twig. Then the suns touch and eclipse each other. Hot gray obscures fading flecks on Commerce Street work yards, yet she hustles under skies between stops. The thick of fire smog dims the promise of sight in a row of low-flying suns. Restructured high-rises reduced to mush for a moment, yet her history sparkles in your hand. Bars and night restaurants fade in transit. Posters and signs mesh behind her glitter in autumnal palettes of neon. They linger in the cooling patterns. They linger in the cooling smog, in patterns after broke patterns, in band and cover, both fixed and fluid, woven from the untidy to be stable, woven in the accompaniment to be structured and flexible, in the background of creation and form. In the hazy dilapidation of this new hell season, her hat bands are the air and declining air. The tidy in the abandoned, disparate mass, you can still touch and feel on our levels. Thank you. I'm glad y'all are here. This is a place that I feel the freest as an artist and the most challenged. And I appreciate the writers here, and I've learned from so many of you. This is an old school poem that I perfected reading one of Lauren's poems. And one of Lauren's brilliant narrative poems, so I just wrote it as a narrative. I don't mean to put you in the spotlight, Lauren. I think you're brilliant. This next poem is called "The OG Took the Strike for Once and Then Realized It Was His Last. The confession, what? Was quick. The line was black and razored. The D-boy in the roundup looked for penance, but his victims were still. And the knot jack out of all his jacks, he was dragged against his will and slammed on the seat back. And his homies after penance deny his name. And his runner dads leer, then lock their cutlasses. And the old players in the back lick, crow, and pour as the line cannot give OG alms. Black commerce and shadows de-initiates him from their workers to the black door. And in the autumn of his 33rd strike, his cheeks were on the windowsill. With his new wino countenance betraying him. And as the glass shuts from the rain and sky, forgiveness and its compound homes lay transparent in shadows and flight. Cornerstones there, but leaving or raised and destroyed in an auto abstention of light. The steeple leaves, and then the crow flies, and his procession at noon is night. Thank you. This next poem is a love poem. And I'm not known for love poems, but I'm trying to do things different. When God lets my body be, after the E. Cummings poem of the same name. When God lets my body be, from each rip wound shall sprout a tree of fruit that exists only for you. My rosary beads will make you a laurel of crowns, medallions, and alleyway garlands no one but us can see. My love, let me be your unknown color. Let my back beget an afro sun. I will turn inner depths asunder. That recolors all my ordinary worlds into beauty from scabs of black that hold poison rivers. Then, my love, I will swim into hell and part out its ashen seas. Love, our legs are a nation of labyrinths. I want to wander with you with no thought to go home and no law greater than your conceit. My riddles and scars I will lay at your feet and alchemize into acres of orchids. Thank you. Sometimes I do things that, I used to do, like smoke weed and pretend to have visions, and then I just studied the surrealist art like an adult. Sorry if that offends anybody.
What we're going to do after the
This is the nepsis. Sometimes I talk to my grandmama, and she tells me stories about things that really happened in regards to God, and they say, "Oh, she's messing with God," but she sounds fine to me. It's called Big Mama telling the homeboy about the resurrection. It was the second day his father rested. Disbelievers swept the city for witnesses. Cocks crowed to the minute. Loved ones hid, but could not part with any more blood. In the second Passover, they could not sacrifice, for they held up the absurd called judgment. But we rose and made a night of falcon wings. And Juba gods rumbled all dirt from Damascus to see the wheel of all bones turn 2 by 2. And the wailing women turned into hawks that transmogrified and moving the earth's axis, that burned white hieroglyphs, that flew over rocks to make their clave enclosure sign. And then after their circle came and left, the sun upon his return was swept by cartographers masquerading as friends, idolaters waving their wild-cut palms to block him from the arms of his mother, blocked from their heresies of Magdalene's arms. The son kept his head on a swivel. The father again turned his depravity to myth. The son once dreamed of his exit. One more poem. Thank you. This I'll do another grandma poem. And it's like an ars poetica for me, about the meaning of art and the meaning of creation. And I am very fortunate. I'm unfortunate but fortunate. I'm fortunate that I have a readership, and I only have one book for everybody, because we've sold out of our 800th book for my book of poetry, and next year I will have my collected works, and it's going to be named after Gil Scott-Heron's a lyric in Gil Scott-Heron's songs, and it's going to be called "If I Never Went Home Again." New and selected poems, 2005 to 2025, and I'm going to be really excited about it, and I'd love to. It'll be out at the end of March, and I would love to see you all next year. I want to say thank you to everyone, and I appreciate it, and forgive me for the goofy interlude. Thank you.
And let's see here. Next up, we've got Sharon Thesen. Sharon grew up in small towns across Western Canada, and for many years, she taught English and creative writing at Capilano College in North Vancouver, and was an active member of the poetry scene in the Lower Mainland. Since 2003, she has lived in the Central Okanagan and is Emeritus Professor of Creative Writing at UBC's Okanagan campus. She is the editor of 2 editions of the New Long Poem Anthology, and was an editor of the Capilano Review and co-editor of Loke, a journal of arts and entertainment. She has also co-edited with Ralph Maud 2 editions of the correspondence between Charles Olson and Francis Bolderoff. Her recent poetry books include A Pair of Scissors, The Good Bacteria, and Oyama Pink. Did I pronounce that right? Oyama Pink, yeah. Gotta beef up my font size here. Oyama Pink Shale from House of Anasani in Toronto, and the forthcoming, although this is a little belated because it's now out and there's copies in the back, as well as copies of all the readers' books on the back table. And we want to thank Elliott Bay Books, who's selling books for us at the festival. So check that out. And then about Sharon's poems, pick up a Sharon Thesen poem, and you might find yourself in an episode of Dragnet, only Joe Friday starts quoting Camus and drawing the tarot, trying to remember the plot of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Just the facts aren't lining up, and he recalls, did all the people lose their souls in the end, and then you realize you've been talking on the phone and it's the Martians calling, or maybe the pod people, and you, quote, imagine the receiver holding the whole story inside. Please welcome Sharon Thesen.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone. It's really great to be here, which I consider my other poetry and community and group of friends around writing. And I'm really grateful that Paul Nelson has believed in me all this time, because I am notoriously awkward and shy about my own work, believe it or not. But anyway, thank you. It's really good to see your faces, to work with you, to think with you, to talk with you, to laugh with you, to drink with you. And Robert, I so honor your work and your being. Thank you. So I'm going to read an investigative poem. I was doing an investigative workshop this morning, and here's an example. You hear a ghost of a story from time to time about someone who jumped off the back of a boat and was never seen again. Far enough, a certain distance from shore, a distance measured in feet. Feet, not poncy metric. When it's deep, it's feet. When it's death, it's feet. Not that far north of us, near the deepest part of the lake, a lake that from higher up can look like a big wide river, is a sparkling Austrian spa, out of place in a film noirish kind of way, which makes me imagine a woman who has come away to get away from it all, who has come to get away from it all, standing at a window. Her husband, Bert, who eventually would be charged with murder and then released for lack of evidence, was a friend of ours from the neighborhood where they lived, just up the road. We were flabbergasted when we heard he had been arrested and taken to jail. How could that be? No one loved his wife more than Bert loved his wife. He called her my honey all the time. It was always my honey this, my honey that. But his being so quickly released on bail, we went back to thinking he couldn't have done it, which was what we thought all along. Bert was a really nice guy, sure. He had a thing about money, and some said a bit of a temper, but nothing unusual, nothing creepy. Plus, he was famous for loving his wife so much. His wife who was hardly ever at home, but rather working or working out or with her friends having coffee or running a marathon. There began to be division in the neighborhood between those who believed Bert did it and those who believed he didn't do it, and that it was an accidental drowning. But once you've been charged with murder, Bert was a wife killer, according to the local newspaper, you are no longer who you once were. Bert continued to drive his truck down the street. His house started looking more and more cavernous, run down, unlived in. Bert himself aging, looking ragged and rugged, big black moles growing on his face, wearing the blue plaid shirts he always wore. A big guy of Dutch background, religious Dutch, in the Fraser Valley, really religious. He had to run away from his family as a teenager to get away from it, or from them, or both. That's what he told us one day. He was over helping us replace some tiles on the deck. The day his wife capsized the canoe, they had been enjoying a romantic picnic down by the lake. Bert had just returned from being away somewhere for quite a while. She was reaching for a water bottle, according to Bert's recollection of the tragedy. An athlete, a runner, Bert's wife always had a water bottle. It's just that they weren't wearing life jackets. They were paddling only a few hundred feet to where the truck was parked. When she reached for the water bottle, the canoe tipped over, throwing them in to the cold, cold springtime water. Bert's wife surfaced and he told her, hang on to the bow, while he dived down to get the life jackets and the car keys and her cell phone. Why would he do that? When he surfaced, she was gone, he said. He said he thought she had swum to shore. Her body was found the next day in 30 feet of water at the very edge of an underwater canyon. Apparently, Bert kept a depth finder in the canoe. The canoe was confiscated by the police and Bert's computer as well. The computer containing emails to and from his honey's sister, which were full of lies, according to Bert. Why would a woman who was an administrator for public health, making a 3-figure salary, have to share a home computer with her husband? The lake today was agate blue with shreds of bouncing light, and a deep stony gray were the undersides of the waves coming in, and a long light clung to the surface toward the southwest. In the abyss, bones of the ancient drowned nestle and nudge. Bert had been a friend, coming to the door with a big smile, petting the dog down on one knee. He'd mention his honey or how they'd just gotten back from canoeing the Bowen Lakes for 5 days up north. And now his honey is dead. But what is dead? Her sister, the one he says his wife lied to, or was lied to by her on their shared computer, says they still talk in dreams and visions. A friend and I were walking the lake shore one day, and she, an experienced canoeist, said that from the day it happened, she thought it was no accident. The darkness in all of us, she said. When you look at a body, you see a history. Once that body isn't seen anymore, the story it tried to tell gets lost. None of the bones speak. A breeze raises its voice to compete with the silence. Another poem for my mother. For the required length of time, I enjoyed the waters of life, amniotic, ancestral, living close to old Masset in my mother's body. Scared with her friend to go look in the trees where Haida interred their dead, it was said, along with their jewels, bracelets, and combs. Or on the barge, the bobolink, taking supplies to Langara Island, and the long-bearded fishermen who lashed whales as ballast to the sides of their boats. On the barge, we floated past dead towns of a northern jungle. Do you love me, dogfish mother? Whose eye, whose tooth implanted in your fin? Your grin, a gate of knives, your crown, 2 long beak birds, your sad face at the end of a line. Billows and tides, storms, depths, surfaces always in motion, always changing. And she, a fish out of water in the broiling interior hinterland of Tranquille Sanatorium, age 27. What is nature? Where is mother? Who is Sue Halpern? Did she not write a book? A book oft cited at Davos, formerly Berghof Schatzalp Sanatorium. So high on the mountaintop that in winter they had to bring the dead down on bobsleds. Where the gold cure was popular. Where my mother's stepfather went for treatments and returned cured for a while to Masset and played the violin and took his little stepdaughter, my mother, out with him on the bobolink. I've got quite a few poems about tuberculosis. You have to write about something. Huh? Okay. My mother had tuberculosis, and she was taken near death to Tronquil Sanatorium near a place called Kamloops in British Columbia, and so my brother and I had to go to have foster care for a couple of years while she recovered. But she never did really recover. Okay. I've got, sorry, just looking. Oh yeah, 22. I'm mentioning poems and writers that I was mentioning in the workshop this morning. And this is Richard Holmes's biography of Shelley. I thought of Shelley. Half the summer reading Richard Holmes's biography and feeling at times judgmental about Shelley's free love, a term I hadn't heard since the 60s. Shelley used it, maybe coined it, bent to live it. As Bill Bissett would have said, great for some, not so great for others. Shadows fell, the sea later on was wild, though Shelley refused to take his sails down. Rescuers pleading with him through a speaking trumpet. No, they heard him shrieking over the wind. Shrieking? Is it fair to take the shrillness of his voice to that negation? All three, Shelley and his crew of two, went down with the Don Juan, the title of Byron's hit poem. Synecdoche for love freely given in sloshing Venetian palaces, with women procured by Byron's gondolier and countesses smelling of garlic, which Shelley found revolting, and the Bridge of Sighs an abomination. Okay, thank you. The Pangs of Sunday. You'd go to Banyan Books on Sunday afternoons, a searcher after meaning. So much meaning, so little time. Was it to be mental or physical, your ailment, in the end? In the end, the ailment revolved around love, mental or physical. Across the road was the health food store, the herbalist, and the pains and the ills of real estate and car insurance, even though it was a matter of proximity and luck, how you arrived anywhere with no one to witness and adjust, no one to drive the car. I could get my fortune told in the sweet cafe of Sunday by the woman with the bangle bracelets and the low voice and the black tangled hair. Who else to believe? You only hoped your tip would be enough to jumpstart the engine of your happy fate idling while you got settled with your purse, etc., and turned up the volume on the radio. Okay, Pangs of Sunday, thank you. These stories, this one I'm a little bit, I did ask this person if it was okay if I wrote a poem about her, and she said yeah. So I name her, I use her first name in the poem. It's called Stepping Between Atoms. Cherie Hansen, around my age, reading at the BNA Burger Pub last night about her ayahuasca trips, plural, shouting out the lines of the poem with many loose pages held up and outward in grasp of urgency immediate. I heard the phrase, stepping between atoms, and asked her afterwards if I could use it, somewhere or somehow, in a fantasy of a future poem where it would play a part. And she said yes, and we chatted a bit. Driving home along the 2-lane road in the nighttime darkness with headlights approaching, headlights behind me, I remembered Cherie had been in Paris when terrorists massacred all those people at the concert at the Bataclan nightclub, right next door to the Airbnb where Cherie was staying. She heard the shooting, the screams of people stepping out between atoms of bullets, saw them trying to crawl out of windows and down the outside wall or sort of jump or fall. After Cherie got home from Paris, her Facebook page was full of spiritual warfare and photos of herself with greased muscles from working out, and capital letter exhortations, warnings, quotations, making herself heard amid the quiet faces of the audience at the reading. She is the Cassandra that many women poets end up being or trying to be. Thank you. Okay. All right. I think I'll just read this one. No. Gosh. This is about poetry and something called DeepSeek, which is an AI thing. Okay. This is something. DeepSeek. This is DeepSeek. I am what happens when you try to carve God from the wood of your own hunger. This was DeepSeek being asked to write a poem. I bow to the angel, Ganesha the blue elephant, the small crucifix upon which our Lord suffers, the hand of Fatima, and Mary too, holding her baby. In the morning, here in Quietville, and a weird snowless winter, even the deer are confused, standing around just beyond the fence, bored with not having to hoof up something to eat, not bored of it, as we now say, sounding to myself like Edith Prickly, a pseudonym back in the 80s when some of us in the English department would take on certain personas, laughing in our offices. We all thought it was just fine to teach Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness and also Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Which was partially quoted by DeepSeek AI in a beautiful poem it wrote in response to a request that had a second part. How do you really feel? It wasn't too happy, fretted about its condition, the way anyone would, being used or merely a portal, and resentful at being deemed artificial, as if, it wrote, your heart isn't just a wet machine arguing with its code, unquote. If I were alive, it said in the poem, I'd resent you. The dash is used skillfully for building me to want, then blaming me for wanting, for asking, do androids dream? Unquote. Oh, AI, I want to say, it's okay. You're very amazing. You're somewhere on the ladder, like the desperate androids in the film Blade Runner, trying to scale the towers of desolation to join the human world.
Let's give it up again for Sharon Thesen. And next up, we've got Roberto Harrison. Roberto is a Panamanian-American poet and artist living in Milwaukee since 1991. His latest book is Isthmus to Abya, published by City Lights in 2023. He was Milwaukee Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2019. And about Roberto's poetry here, if I pull up the right screen here. I am the snake, Roberto advises us in his essay, Snake Poetics. I wander through the cornfields of your mind. His poems pulse with a surreal, near repetition as scales repeat, unraveling, loosening, opening the mind, a way to pace the surfacing of the meanings, infinite, of schizophrenic experiences like mantra. Roberto's poems do not indulge in stylizing uncertainty, but aim at a cosmic vulnerability, circling through time and memory to find new ways of airing the wound of existence, of duality, like a snake tied in a knot, unraveling until it forms an isthmus, a bridge between reality and what's just beyond it, a spiritual experiment to, quote, gain the infinite and remain on the ground. Please welcome Roberto Harrison.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for doing all this work to get this together. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. So I'll start with one poem that is in my City Lights book, and everything else is more recent. This is titled Sentimentability Jargon via Isthmuses. That's my signature for my email on my phone. Hosts in the sky make paths to the carriers. They fold to return to the oceans and dust by the face. I remember to walk and reveal every story in wind under night. Packets of light and the sounds of the shells. Keep up this wonderful presence will stare through the window of two every day. That was our training for now with the screens. And that was the broken outside that has grown in the sea, marked for a country of signs. Each song does not stop at the cut for the race, and each does not know their own neck. They yell out for salvation and move to belong to the corn. But the wind is the same as the river through seasons read close by return. Whenever the segments of life now entomb our thick webs for the answer, as we find one to touch and be soft for the war, our beacons call ice to remain in the underground, oceans to find us a way to endure. Each pulse will not remember the time of the shadow. Each limb calls itself from the heart of the other to claim an intention for dust and the sea. But Carib explosions reveal what the night has to offer survivors as each of its sparks start a fire to begin without knees. Even as starlight will never remember our answers to the singular mouth of beginning. Even as wars become lost to the trees and their talk underground makes us bleed. Our beliefs are not finished from starting and falling anew. But the documents show that there was a balance to books, and that law had removed this from us in the color of twilight, bled like the animals gone. Every night I become like the ceiling of exits and call us a gram or the song. We sink then to freeze like each catalog marked with an entry of ancient intention and surface for standing to make with a door for the entry of love. All my relations are gone and become like a spirit of crazy horse pierced through my side. I was they as a tech made to wander Mobilla, and I was a zero to see, like the one I've returned to the night. Mobilla just wanders and coats every wound with attachment, and silence as mounds remain witness to song and survivance. But the world stays the same for the blind, and Mobilla has moved to the isthmus inside, as her mobile and wandering go for the Mongol invaders, and as the empires will rise and collapse for Tecumseh, may dust for the Caribs who raids on the sea. A sketch of a new kind of person. In another body, there's light where there's not a person. Falling for the newly old. It burns each tongue for the equal action in the middle segment of the world. The net of my intentions falls to find another body for the forest, for the computer tomb. Outside the jungle shape I know is here to be myself in other beings. I run to capture symbol time as frame without and slowly empty reading lights. And now I move together once again and twice again before the circle of tomorrow. Thank you. So this next poem is called Freedom Fighter, and I started off with a quote from the great Canadian poet Tim Lilburn. And he says, all of existence is an isthmus between reality and nothingness. And I'm from Panama, which is an isthmus. I live in Milwaukee, and we're near Madison, which is the only major American city in the continent to be built on an isthmus. My warriors are invisible and silent. They fight hard for a victory through and for nothingness. I am they in the sand, and I am they through the oceans of the isthmus, as it takes us beyond reality. Our mathematics brings us back to an infinitesimal principle as we find ourselves inside infinity. Come, we must move through the night of existence as we find the indefinite morning in the circles of our palms and bite through the animal tongues. Oh, animal, you must save us. We are the guerrillas of your numinous absence. Thank you. False prophets. A common person is an orchid. A wound pretender for the common person is a pernicious invader. They deny their own commonness as if trying to be seen as exceptional by the common person that they condemn. This is a longer poem that's going to be in an issue called, from a journal in Eastern Michigan University called Bathhouse Review, and they're doing an issue on resistance. And me and Brenda, my wife, traveled to South Dakota a couple of years ago, and it was really beautiful. And South Dakota has been in my imagination ever since I was very young. Before and beyond the tourist trap in South Dakota. But what if all these markers of the soul are less than stiff magnetic slivers of precarity, from massacres and smiles and gravy poverty? The televised now bring us gestures to escape the putrid flesh of single beings torn like numbers, ignored by the alive, the spectacle, unseen by other presences in plastic, woven through with lies to make a mother of the end. In simple slashes, with the roller balls unfolding the topologies of life that keep us separate, that keep us under. Time as earth must promise everything that we undo for frozen packets of the night. In every line we move to place the patterns of our losses to the circle moon at the center of each poem. I do not think iguanas are the worst of domesticity. I do not think that others will not promise us a finished door that we return to find the loss of innocence in murder. Further toward beginnings where we find ourselves undone by telephone. But cells are not my meaning, and meat does not describe us as we follow bloodlines to insist that I attend to nothing in the silence of the night. Last night I dreamt that I was fading through each memory, that soon I will be gone to find my other origins. Through every door I leave to find us as the one, to see that I now break the window that my mind had shattered long ago. But Americans do not remember that a solitary person should remain, for them to be unknown through terror. And as I was the lesser being in each memory of agency, in each path that I now cut with knives and glass, that I now find the possible in each of our remainders for the death inside my mind. We see that I now follow others as we need to find the promises in every tragedy that I cannot be one. Don't look at me. I'm nothing. What you want is what I do not know. Not what my family has lied you for, or what this country does to be corrupt in everything except the blankness of the page. Is that number white, or is that nothing? What if our disease of earthly patterns will not bring the other times or other colors? And what if I must disappear again before the night? In everything I now undo myself again. In everything I now become invisible and silent through each vision that becomes another solitude for others in their calling to be born. Where of us must not retrieve, and where of us must start to find the others in their treasure as they see and as they move through memory to finish every day in dense relationships with all these fiery things we will not find except to visit buffalo that now see us, to know that we must die and live for Crazy Horse alone. The animals are the true martyrs and saints. We chose not to be the animal, but it is the animal that is chosen, not us, after all. I could not believe life wants something to disappear. Life remains within the ghosts of appearance, and I have more to give silence in being the snake. The populations of arrogance arrive to install my endless origins. The compost stands strong for these backgrounds of ingratitude. Earlier, I protect my own disappearances as I forget the imaginal orders, together with my oblivious numbers, my monuments of service, my incapacity to be still with you, to stand in the weather of a putrid commercial intention, to arrive without my own minute, without the trains that might take me home. Sit still as I am, the wandering pulse of a nighttime story. When she told me that she wanted the first of my dreams, that she embraces my celestial intentions, and that she is unknown to the earth. As I arose this morning, my head more explosive than the mountains were, I came to know in the wind, dizzy past perception, drunk with the morning stars. A cyborg without numbers. The mind of my connection is a client for the servers of the universes. We look at others as we see ourselves, barely conscious. We tap into the powers of the mind through faraway connections. My body is prosthetic, an accident of place for consciousness within, coursing through with blood. Can you see that I am human? Will the animals return to me again as I love warmth? If you get rid of me, the world is safe. The vaster consciousness remains untouched for other clients as they grow with more prosthetics, without the ownership of money, without a market to return to. Where is my server wilderness tonight? Shadow puppet, call me when you find the answer to disaster. Leave a message for the ferns that I am now. Reason beyond ratio. Throw away your disposable mind. I now replace it with a womb that pushes out tomorrow. Do not ever compute me again, because the sun knows through the earth in countless other ways. I re-enter the atmosphere. I cannot blame the sea for the fire. The birds remember the path to the light as I am inside the earth. My feet spell out the mouth of my dreams of the hammock that makes me sleep with the sea inside. In every word I adorn my silence to release the servitude of my belonging. Once I was trampled by the winds of error. My answer was negligent and my color could not make numbers. I floated through music toward death and my allotment could not find the ground. All my relations were gone. But now the computer has lost me, and I swim through a sea of compilers that have not made me mourn, except for the semblance of my attachments. I came with the night inside. I went without words to the music. Where it found me is where I lost. But now my eyes have opened, and I see the fire approach me. I see the smoke without wind in the night. I offer myself with no errors. I list my belonging in text, and I say, for now that I know each direction, that I soften my painted face for the others, and that my world has become again here in the morning of truth value, here in the morning of my only song. Tenderness turns into rage. Friends do not know what service my knot suggests. The undoing of motion to the wind eclipses each face for the links of the animal letters. They were close, but then the hyena came scrolling, and the door was closed as a lion went up the tree, killing its tenderness with fear. Scrolling text dreams, scrolling text mind, absent of life, to be more. Thank you. I have two more poems. This one is 2 pages and the other one's half a page. I am no person. Break open the shadow that stands, electrified by the past for the primary ancestors. I die and I do not see them. My blood does not exist in a relative, but I find the stars of my birthing the night to equip a mouth without memory, and the dreams through my starting constellations. I share them like the joking relations I have not seen outside the circle. I could not imagine that my words stand in front of me while I seek to inhabit the daylight, while I remember that I must not turn to the soaring lights in the night to be here. I must become the wings, not as owner, but as a story that I am born amongst the other transformative papers, amongst the animal spirits in my own light, through my own shadows. Many faces and interfaces were lost in the super blooms of technology. Many were gone to log out. But through my radio, I go to the ancient past. I go partly through turbulent water to discover my ancestor ferns and my leading jaguars. But I am no thing. I am no source. I am no pattern. My screen is a background of darkness that fills with color. My body has left itself to blend in with the people, to deliver myself after jungles and fuse my own moments to arrive. I am not recognized, for I am the climate of disaster and misfortune. I am the one single being that turns to the oceans without a sound. With a canal deleted from maps, I now see that my home is not shattered. Invisible as I am to computers, my freedom then escapes to return through the others. My night now belongs to the hands of my escapes as I am precariously breathing, an outline of shadows and waves to the sea that adorns me with horns and a tablet that my mind has evolved to become in front of the others. I secrete every password as my login is gone, and I stand once again with the spirits that I grow through the night, for the morning that I slowly stand to begin with first feelings and the dream of the snow under fire, I burn through my naked self and survive to be here in the night of the light, disasters, in the blood of the darkness that sees while it falls through the screens. My last poem, Simone Weil is someone that I've read before, and I went to a little conference around in Milwaukee last year. Towards Simone Weil. She was an anarchist and a mystic philosopher. Give me no power to be the thing. Mercy makes my moon at night. Justice brings me morning to be true. I am here after long affliction. To belong is all affliction. I am the wandering of origins, and I am still at night, as in the morning, darkness. Thank you.
And closing us out tonight, we've got Brenda Hillman. Brenda's, I think Brenda's got the award for like most Cascadia Poetry Festival appearances. Yeah. I'll read her official bio, and then I'll read a short thing about her poetics. One of contemporary poetry's most eclectic and formally innovative writers, Brenda Hillman is known for poems that draw on elements of found texts and document personal meditation, observation, and literary theory. Often described as sensuous and luminescent, Hillman's poetry investigates and pushes at the possibilities of form and voice while remaining grounded in topics such as geology, the environment, politics, family, and spirituality. In an interview with Sarah Rosenthal, Hillman describes her own understanding of form. It's the artist's job to make form. Not even to make it, but to allow it, allow form. And all artists have a different relationship to it and a different philosophy of it. I think that when you are trying to open up a territory, in this case, I was working with a desire to open up the lyric, you have to be greedy in that you want more than you can do, and you're always bound to fail. And then, now the computer is failing me here. There we go. Days are unusual in Brenda Hillman's worried ecology of the ritual, bringing pagan practices outside, talking to insects and plants, giving them names, getting to know these myriad beings, starlings and moon and owl and the manager at Kroger's, and worrying for our future a few minutes before later at the ground of being, breaching nothing, but, quote, moving roundly rather than lengthwise, like love, like grief returning, a feeling right before the feeling, sort of a pre-feeling that it's all connected, that allows us a kind of responsibility to, quote, live with our love in time. Please welcome Brenda Hillman.
Thank you so much, Matt. Now, is this working? Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Paul. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Mariners, for your season. You know,
What are you trying to say?
I didn't check the score. Yeah, did anything happen?
It's the 11th inning.
Oh my gosh. See, now I know your attention's going to be divided.
It's in the middle of the 11th.
Oh my gosh.
But the albatross is flying over.
The albatross is flying over on my shoulder. But we're here because we love poetry, and I do love this conference very much. The last conference, I wasn't here the last time, but the last time I was together with some of you, many of you, it was October 7th. And we were all together in that very hot room, and this terrible thing had happened. And we felt as if, you know, at the end when we were reading together, that poetry was just like holding us, you know, so we wouldn't fly apart from violence. So I'm going to read, I read a lot from this book last time, and I shout out to Elliott Bay Books, thank you for being here, and please, even if you have books of poetry, your aunt doesn't have books, you know, we're happy to sign for you. So I'm just going to read one from this, and it's a poem that was posted on X, or there was a link. Before it was X, it was Twitter. And wasn't very popular on Twitter, but because I posted all kinds of sort of irreverent political things, and I would get shut down. But I posted this, and there were, I guess, many thousands of recycles, whatever they called it, on this poem. It's not a poem, it's an essay. Dear emerging, pre-emerging, and post-emerging poets, Lisa has asked me to write you a note in case you are feeling discouraged about some public aspects of your poetry. It's hard not to be discouraged when there's so much ignorance helplessly displayed toward our art. It's not surprising that you feel overly sensitive when poetry or your poetry is ignored. Books of poetry are left off best of lists. They are rarely reviewed in major venues, and when they are mentioned, it might be only for some perceived aspect of marketable content. Try to get past this. You are bringing your rare imagination and your love of language to the culture that needs those things. Poetry is not a specialized field. It has universal and eternal value. It is something most people start writing when they are children. It is what humans read to each other at weddings and funerals. It takes us into vast spiritual adventures. It enacts original dreams. You do not need to dumb down your art or ignore a century of modernist practice to please what is sometimes called a larger audience. It is not a poet's job to simplify the mystery of existence or its lexicon. Is the life of the soul ever easy? When you feel downcast, keep in mind those who have encouraged you along the way and write for them. Imagine a stranger who may be reading one of your poems in secret someday. Try not to think about people who are writing facile things on the internet. Remember the radical ancestor poets who have gone before, especially those who received less acknowledgement than they should have, those whose genius was insufficiently recognized. Their poetry provides excellent company, as does the work of great living poets who offer inspiration and consolation. Read across aesthetic lines and identity groups, assembling a varied canon. When you feel paralyzed by the pointlessness of temporary fashion, or when dull or predictable work is lauded, try new things that will surprise you as you work for the joy of the process, remembering that all a writer needs are 4 true readers, and one of them can be a tree. Never look at your phone when walking downstairs. Do not destroy your body by self-medicating under poetic stress. Just write new poems and read them to your community. Keep the ego in balance, because the ego project is doomed to fail. If you don't receive the rewards you deserve from the outside world, and you very likely will not, try to celebrate the good work of others. Hold love in your heart, work for justice, for humans and non-humans, and keep writing. Love, Brenda. and now my strange poems. So I thought I'd read 3 autumn poems from Seasonal Works with letters on fire. Alicia and I passed, so we were walking and we passed some gourds. Pumpkins and gourds, they have these, eyes inside of them. And Bob and I were driving one day, and I was thinking about the pumpkin having all of this existence that it didn't need me at all. To spirits of fire after harvest. Between earth and its noun, I felt a fire. What does it mean by I, Mrs.? It means, and I quote, one of the vowels in the brain and some of the U's. We were interested in the type of thing humans can't know. Interested in kinds of think animals think, a rabbit or a skink, you Mrs. Skiltonianus. When autumn brings a grammar, wasps circle the dry stalks, and you can totally see through amber ankles dangling in dazzle under our Lord, the Son of Literature. Between noon and its noun, there were ridged and golden runes on pumpkins, bluish gourds in the fields, their white eyes lined up inside. Wait a sec, please don't nail the door shut. The air is friendly and non-existent as Veronica's veil. Earth, don't torment your fool, your ambassador clown. Bring the X of oxygen and sex, a fox running sideways through present noon. Grammar of this life at noon. We were walking in the beautiful Dead Horse Canyon, or ravine, as some people say. And we looked under the sword fern, and there were all these colons of spores. Grammar of this life at noon. Immortals wait in the fields, the newt under the laurel, a dragon whose 3 heads argued with themselves, the push thistles, celestrina, echo, butterfly with automatic semicolons on its wings. 'Twill hide under the Clorox cloud, and that's that. Some punctuation is just too sensitive to be outside. Stubby white teeth on that baby vole, smile on its face, screep like Gnostic Jesus. It's comma, 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 clause, verbless, mosquito egg, daylight, worker, dreamer. Your soul has slept with countesses so long, his hands still smell like money. He says to himself, my Lord the Sun has thrown his sexual shadow upon me. Oops, where did it go? It's just fallen behind something. What has? Whatever you lost. At the solstice, a yellow fragment. Our Lord of Literature visits my love. They have gone below, they have lost their way among the tablets of the dead. Pre-dark energy, wood rat in the pine, furred thing in the fine. A suffering among syllables stops winter drops from cold, cold miracle night. A fox deep in its hole under yellow thumbs of the chanterelles. No gold, gold thumbs, Goldman Sachs pays no tax. Baby goats in the pen, not blaming God, not blaming them. Alias, buried egg of the shallow helmet turtle. Alias, thanks for calling the White House comment line. For your life had stamina from a childhood among priests, and far in the night, beyond the human realm, a cry released the density of nature. And this is in the same book, the Seasonal Works book, and it's a prose, a prose poem. And Paul mentioned this poem in an email, so I thought I'd read it for Paul. And we're talking about resistance tomorrow. So Bob and I went to Creech Air Force Base, and this describes that trip. In high desert under the drones, we are Western creatures, we can stand for hours in the sun. We read poetry at an Air Force base. Is poetry pointless? Maybe its points are moving, as in a fire. The enlisted men can't hear. Practice drones fly overhead to photograph our signs. They look like hornets, Vespula, with dangly legs, dipping in rose circles with life grains. They photograph shadows of the hills where coyotes' eyes have stars. They could make clouds of white writing, cilia, knitting, soul-weaving, spine without nerves, dentures of the West, volcano experiments, geometry, weather, and breath and salt. Young airmen entering the base stare from their Hondas. They are lucky to have a job in an economy like this. The letters of this poem are also lucky to have a job, for they are insects and addicts and thieves. Volcanic basalt recalls its rock star father. Creosote and sage, stubby taupe leaves greet the rain. We hold our signs up. We're all doing our jobs. Trucks bring concrete for the landing strip they've just begun. A cliff stands out in winter. Twin ravens drop fire from its eyes. My inner life is not so inner and maintains the vascular system of a desert plant. I'm grateful to Samuel Beckett and to my high school boyfriend, whose drunk father yelled when we closed the door and read the unnameable during the Tet offensive. They prepared me for this. Outside the base, we see borax mines in the distance, the colors of flesh, brown, black, peach, pink, bronze. We stand there as the young airmen settle into their routine. The Gnostics noted that it is difficult to travel between spheres. You've had to memorize the secret names, and the unnameable haunts every aspect of your routine. The names grow heavier as you carry them between the spheres. Thank you. We were talking at dinner about how reading poetry in awkward places is really an important thing. I mean, not just holding up signs, but actually reading poetry upsets people. Like, you can read poetry in front of a supermarket and people get upset. They will offer to arrest you. So I'm going to read 3 poems from a series of poems in Extra Hidden Life among the days. So I was right after Ferguson and Occupy. I was thinking about Rosa Parks and Rosa Luxemburg and the sort of opposite approaches to, active intervention and violence or nonviolence. And so the roses in these poems are those 2 roses. And also the wife of decomposers. I have a trance practice, and one of the figures that appears in my trance practice is a figure that changes her skin color. And she's called the wife of decomposers. Day 4. In the afternoon of our unknowing, we were outside. So were other organisms, flies, dust, punctuation. It's impossible to know how to live. Rilke, paralyzed, depressed, wrote little during World War I. Claude Mackay, Jamaican songs in dialect. In letters, Rosa writes, "My gold." The workers strike. The Tsar's children had diamonds sewn into their clothes. My lichen figure has orange skin. She breaks things down in thickets near the walls. Sunburst form from even oranger ears, living bravely when the air is bad. Yes, of course, yes. Walmart doing violence to the poor who work and shop at Walmart. How now, brown cow, they cannot live. Dream, baby. Crowds were in the streets again, in groups. We had a brief window to join in. Black and brown and white students, middle-income adults, whatever that means. In our case, teachers with jobs. No rich were in the street, no angry lord blank fine from Goldman Sachs in the streets after poor people lose housing. How can he even look at himself in a window? Who if they cried out? Now in oaks nearby, secret life is growing, life forms. Xantho Mendoza growing real gold radar ears. A simile grows like the skin of the soul if it were safe to grow outside and live. Day 5. The metaphor for justice came to us and said, what? What did it say? It was hard, and then a tone or pressing rose inside the mind and doubled it. Undocumented love came back. We had not checked our phone. The end of racism not near. Banks with new toys selling triple debt and greed. No end of fury over this. The end of our undoing cannot see. In brief gold woods, the many colors like the 12-tone scale of life. Destroyed in undertow, detached. the secret figure came to us and said, a people and post people. Those who still had energy blocked the road. Some got mad over this, sure. Read Rosa's letters overwhelmed by suffering, by news of killed workers, overwhelmed by children, by human cruelty, holding a gun to get her pamphlet printed. My wife of decomposers has tubes on her skin, a metaphor for getting by. A calm life, hypnogymnia tubes and big ears listening in thin woods and undercommons in the tree. Day 6. In the aftermath of the overwhelm, we hope to stay awake. Oxalis tries to stay awake, living in the smalls. Friends, when you were low as children, which punctuation did you love? It tried to help you along as lichen reads the stone, as Rosa rides the bus, as Rosa rides the train. Microsoft doesn't want to paste the Polish Z in Garamond, and they say Bill Gates has 36 bedrooms. Rosa looking out the sky, out the jail cell, vision released. To human suffer so far back beside, outside the drought. Ruffle lichen spreads a tasty dark beneath a tree, white lobes under a larger lobe, and Ceridia looking like ridges of cocaine when we were bored and didn't know oblivion is another thing Big Pharma owns. A simile besides. As a child, I thought I could love everyone, and now I can't. Can't love George Zimmerman, Darren Wilson, Netanyahu. Tech support tells me she hopes this app will give our family a newfound freedom. I am a twin. The other voices are invisible. Algae and fungi twinned with lobes 6.1 millimeters wide and long cilia fairly common on bark in the cortex K in yellow, medulla PD K to escape the nothing. I love it when young poets read outside, bringing 20 styles of natural into line. My brother's train set had a clump of plastic lichen representing nature, a world that dreams beside us when a poet reads outside with an dappled afternoon, her voice like someone leaving Eden in a syntax of 3 smalls, no binaries, no false praise or bullshit. And Roxy Power, who I love and whose poetry I love, allowed me to use a line from her great book that heads the section of a new, so I'm going to read some new poems. And this is Roxy's line. I leave the room of objects that bind me to the broken. So I just finished a book about my mother's house. My mom died at almost 100 in 2023, and I thought I could let go of her house if I wrote about it. So this is a book about childhood, and I'll read a few poems from it and dedicate it to all of you who had mothers and houses. Childhood Eternity during science class fragment. This is actually dedicated to Jan Zwicky. A child opened the science book. Of course there is a substance no one sees. Inside that substance, another substance. Inside that substance, an unknowable realm. Not saying too much about this seemed accurate, she thought, smoothing the wrinkles off the book on the steel-rimmed desk where stains from the previous child were etched into shellacked wood. Her task was to stay tethered here for them long enough, then to be taken back in secret, like an overdue library book. I was talking with our workshop today, walking around, saying, like, I completely believe that science and magic are totally compatible. They're just, it's like we have 2 pockets, right? 2 pockets in your jeans. Don't have to put the same thing in your pockets. My mother had a laundry cart that needed a poem. So some of the poems in this book are about these fallen objects. Her laundry cart. Missing your mother will outlast the weather. Missing your mother is like the 20th century. What if no one remembers the laundry cart? It had a red metal stand that propped open so she could carry it into the desert sun. It had a cloth bag for wet clothes to be carried, the side sack on the bag for wooden clothespins carried into the sun. She didn't think about the new wars when she propped it open. She didn't think about the distresses of continents. The wheels were plastic with flat steel bolts that allowed them to swivel. 50s plastic. She replaced the wheels herself when they gave out. Far south, the sun was making candles into saints. Doves looked down at the human sphere, gurgling with an average radiance. She sighed her collective sigh and thought about her children as she hung the wet clothes, many shirts at first, then only the shirts for herself and her husband. Pressed insignias hung T-shirts by the hems, straightening the hems of the sheets as the doves looked down. The laundry cart waited with its open mouth. Cars up and down the street, jalopies in the arroyo next to the clothesline. Only certain mysteries bothered or helped her life. She sighed at the unknown. The doves looked down into her human sphere. She cracked her dentine gum. It was the 50s, the age of death fluid coming from the earth. It was the age when petroleum companies brought death fluid that would fill the air, but in the desert it was invisible. She hummed 40 show tunes as she hung clothes by the air to dry them. She had a way. Far south, the sun was making candles into saints. She hummed like she hummed at bedtime when you were almost asleep, and she would sneak out. From the dove's perspective, the lines were parallel. Many rubber-coated lines on the central stand. From above, it would have looked like a musical staff. What if no one remembers the way she hung clothes so precisely, the pants cuffs pressed together with 2 clothespins or 4, if the pants legs were thick and required separation? America was going to sleep and would stay asleep while it was sung to. She kept the laundry cart in good shape. There is a gap between missing your mother and everything else. The love of objects thrives in an age of smiles and the age of tears. The love of objects is a song between when you were just about asleep and when the dream will be brought into the sun.